Hi. So we will continue with our discussion on the book, and this time with the chapter 2, Feminism. So the main idea is that there is this debate between carceral feminism and abolition feminism on this idea of how to fight against gendered violence, so violence against women. So carceral feminism is this idea that women can be protected by the carceral system. So it's about making people guilty of domestic violence accountable and punished by the carceral systems. But abolition feminism is this idea that women are not protected by the carceral systems. In fact, they are harmed even more by carceral systems. So it's not, it's contradictory to promote carceral systems if you want to protect women. And so the argument in these books, it's about abolition feminism, is that domestic violence rates do not decrease because of the increase of the resources in the carceral system. So women are still victims of domestic violence, even though men are punished for it and punished by the carceral systems. And also, incarcerated women suffered the same type of violence in jails and prisons than they suffered at home with domestic violence. So there is this similarities between domestic violence and carceral violence, because women, when they are incarcerated, they are vulnerable, they are socially dead. So they are dishonored, they are vulnerable to violence, and they are alienated from their natality, in the sense that the links between them and their family are not recognized anymore. Sorry for the noise. And now for the third chapter, which is called Now, it's a case study of social movements in Chicago in the last 2 decades, because the idea is that we can develop a new language from the fight, from different fight from the social movements in Chicago, even though they are not called abolitionists or feminists. So what we learned is that, for example, you have this movement, Black People Against Torture. So they make this document to make police officers, to force police officers to be accountable for the violence against Black men. So from 1972 to 1991, and they said that there are hundreds of Black men who were tortured by Chicago police, and at least one woman, under the commandment of John Burge. So this proves that prisons are centralized location of physical abuse. And also, so this pushes us to question how we can describe the political ontology of police officers. Are they workers? So because we see that left coalitions do not necessarily agree with the fuck the police sentiment, because first, it's not a good, respectable way to express anger, and also because police are considered workers. And so that's the question, are police workers? And it seems absurd to ask this type of question, but it's similar to Afro-pessimist approach when they say that Black people are not workers, they are slaves. So you say, oh no, Black workers work, they are not enslaved, but political ontology make us see that although there is this title of worker, they are treated differently than other workers because they are vulnerable to gratuitous violence and they are dishonored. So they are socially dead. So I think it's the same type of question here. Workers and police officers. Police officers as agents of white supremacy, of armed agents, maybe they are different. And so this further the question also, but if you have these carceral systems, and carceral system is not just prisons and jails, so it's not just in the hands of the police, it's also social workers. Because social workers have the power to separate families with this child protection service. So you have this abolition idea that maybe if we reduce the number of calls to 911, we will help the cause. So if we have some emergency, for example, a child is misbehaving at school, instead of calling the police against that child, you call a social worker to diffuse the situation. But the idea is that the problem is social workers are part of the carceral systems too. So they have a lot of power. And that was one remark made from one of the participants in the groups, and it was really beneficial, but that pushed me to ask the question, is there still a difference in ontology between social workers as part of the carceral systems and police officers? And to me, it seems that police officers are still different because they are armed. They have weapons. And so, sorry for the noise. So when it comes to violence, police still have more power. So it seems that we have to make some kind of hierarchy when we describe the carceral systems, and we have to put police on top. It's just a question I'm asking myself. I think that's all I wanted to say for the book, okay? The book, in terms of argument, is efficient when it comes to feminism and abolition. I have the same problem that I had with the first part of the book, which is the writing, because the writing is self-indulgent and is wordy. So it can be more concise, but also we can see that there are different parts. The writing is different. So because we have 4 different authors, so sometimes it's very concise and efficient, and sometimes it's just talking just for the act of talking. But in terms of argument, if we want to go back to argument, I would say in terms of content, they made not really good rhetorical choices because they have these very important concepts such as social death that they did not choose to develop. And so it lacks rigor because you have to provide this type of analysis, and you have to go also with this implication, social death for women. So what is social death for men? Because men are more incarcerated. Same thing for the terror, Black people against torture. So it's interesting to say that okay, you have hundreds of Black men tortured and at least one woman tortured. So what does it mean for men? So you talk about feminist abolition, and you talk about this idea that we forgot the name of the woman, but hundreds of Black men are tortured. So what is going on with the men, and why it's not explained in the book? So it seems dishonest when you have the data that prove that men are more vulnerable to the carceral system's violence. So that's all I want to say. I don't want to go to the epilogue. Do I think this book is not necessarily the best book that you can read if you want to initiate yourself to Angela Davis writings, because Angela Davis' voice is not really recognizable, except in the part of in the abolition chapter when they discuss Du Bois' contributions. So you can hear a little bit Angela Davis, but if you want to initiate yourself to Angela Davis, don't read this book. It's not useful, and it's also not fun to read because it's just a bunch of words, bunch of names of organization. They are just naming and no analysis. So if you are interested in philosophy or analysis, you won't like this book really. So no, I would not recommend this book.